ॐ वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्मयेधि वेदस्य मआणिस्थ श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ May my speech be firmly established in my mind. May the mind too be firmly established in my speech. O self-effulgent Lord, be revealed in my consciousness. May the truths of the scriptures shine forth in my life. May not what I learn from them ever forsake me. Let me lead my life day and night according to their teachings. I shall speak what is appropriate. I shall speak the truth. May that protect me. May that protect the teacher. Om, peace, peace, peace. Let us feel our ego like a salted doll, a doll made of salt, and is immersed in the infinite ocean of existence, consciousness, bliss, Sat Chid Ananda. I am feeling various layers of the ego getting dissolved. I am able to gradually see my true, infinite, ever blissful, ever perfect nature. All illusions of I and mine have disappeared. Gone are all desires. For I am that is. There is no birth for me, no death either, for I am existence itself. Om. Peace, peace, peace. So, dear friends, let us begin the discussion on this wonderful spiritual biography of Sri Ramakrishna, written by his very dear, intimate disciple Swami Saradananda. And we shall begin that with our regular chant, opening chant. Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashvapaham Shravanamangalam Shrimadattatam Bhuvi Grinantite Bhurida Janaha. This section that we are studying is Sri Ramakrishna as teacher, guru, the one who imparts the spiritual wisdom, the illumination that removes all traces of ignorance and its effects too. All the ego is gone, that because it is product of ignorance. I and mine, that ego, a limited sense of I, is product of ignorance. It goes away because the knowledge dawns, and this knowledge is imparted by Sri Ramakrishna both as a matter of intellectual understanding and also as matter of imbibing it, absorbing it, and leading to the experience of that state of realization of God. So, the particular chapter that we are studying is how the aspirants of various different sects would come to Sri Ramakrishna, and without knowing, I mean, they didn't come with the idea of visiting Sri Ramakrishna. They were coming to Dakshineshwar Kalibadi, that mother of that universe temple there, Mother Kali's temple, and they had lot of good arrangements for the mendicants to stay, to have food and so forth. So, for that purpose, they would visit there, stay there, and in due course happened to meet Master Sri Ramakrishna and get illumined by his presence. We saw a few examples. Right now we have been studying the example of a great scholar, Pandit Narayan Shastri, who had been staying in Bengal to learn the philosophy of Nyaya. He had already finished the study of all the other 5 systems of Indian Orthodox philosophy. And Nyaya he had studied, but it was the opinion, a decided opinion, that unless one studies this new Nyaya philosophy under the great savants of that in Bengal, it is not complete. So he had come to Bengal, that Navadvip, for that purpose, and had completed, and then on his way now back to his home, he decided to see many good places, nice places in Bengal, and had come to Dakshineshwar and happened to see the master, and then a great transformation came in his life, that he had heard many things but understood the importance of what is called spirit of renunciation or vairagya. That is the sign of how much knowledge actually has gone in, because otherwise the knowledge remains only in the intellect. It does not percolate down in our heart and in our actual day-to-day life. It is like that, and therefore actually it is just ignorance. Sometimes even the intellectual understanding gives a sense of a heightened ego, that I am better than others, I know all these things, all this philosophy, I am well conversant with it, and so forth. And then thereby they expect more honor and monetary and other benefits that accrue. So this is not really the knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna used to tell us the story of a scholar of Bhagavatam, used to go to the king and describe various things Bhagavatam, hoping that the king would give him some honorarium for all this. He would tell Bhagavatam stories for an hour or so, and then would ask the king, have you understood, king? And the king would reply, you understand it first, sir. So it went on a few times, and the scholar used to wonder why I am asking him, have you understood? Instead of saying yes or no, he would just ask me that you understand it first. What is this? And he pondered over what is the hint of the king, and it struck him that Bhagavatam tells that God alone is all, and one should renounce the cravings for all the worldly things, and that is to be understood by study of Bhagavat. The king sees that I am hankering for money, and therefore I am telling Bhagavatam, and therefore he tells me, you understand first. And so he that day decided not to go to the king to read Bhagavatam. Instead he sent a note to the king that I have understood, and he therefore renounced everything and went to forest practicing austerities and so forth. So, the renunciation is the effect of knowledge. We saw that passage from Mundak Upanishad, that it comes almost at the end of the Mundak Upanishad, after giving all philosophy, all types of that spiritual advice, everything given, and then said, well, that the knowledge must culminate in what is called sannyasa, the renunciation, or being established in the divine awareness. That is the meaning of knowing. So, it says that if the knowledge is not accompanied with renunciation, then by that knowledge nobody will be able to realize the self. A very powerful verse. So, Narayan Shastri, we saw while having this company, holy company of Sri Ramakrishna, was getting this understanding that what is the use of merely becoming a big scholar and hoping to get a lot of recognition, honor and all those things that follow it. So, he was thus feeling very certain that I have to thus renounce everything. We were seeing that on page 594, that Shastri heard a big, another very famous poet of Bengal, Madhusudan Datta, Michael Madhusudan Datta. So, Michael Madhusudan Datta had come to see Sri Ramakrishna. He had come to Dakshineshwar as some in the matter of some legal things going on, and in the course met Sri Ramakrishna, and then Sri Ramakrishna had sent Narayan Shastri to see him, and Narayan Shastri asked that, well, why did you change your religion? Why did you become Christian? And he replied, well, for this getting my livelihood. It is because Britishers were rulers, and Christians, if somebody embraces Christianity, then that person would have lot of decided advantages in the matters of getting jobs and all that. So he said, I became Christian for that. Now Swami Saradananda says that whether Madhusudan Datta spoke it seriously or in jest, we don't know. But it left a mark of disgust on the mind of Shastri, Narayan Shastri. And he was not at all, he didn't speak to Madhusudan Datta after that. And then on a wall in Dakshineshwar wrote in charcoal that it is in clear Bengali letters that it is very disgraceful to give up one's religion for the sake of one's livelihood, quote unquote. So, this is how, and when these disciples, Swami Saradananda had come there, that writing was still there. So he asked that master, because master Sri Ramakrishna would be telling about Narayan Shastri from time to time, and so told, look, Narayan Shastri wrote this about Michael Madhusudan Datta. So, and then gradually what happened was, that is described here, that one day Shastri found the master alone. he took the opportunity to express his heart's desire, insisting that the master initiate him into sannyasa, the vows for embracing monastic life. Seeing his eagerness, the master agreed and initiated him into sannyasa on an auspicious day. Shastri did not remain in the Kali temple after taking the vows of sannyasa. He told the master that he had resolved to go to Vasishtha Ashrama in Assam. Should not be confused with famous Vasishtha Gufa, which is in Himalayas. This is some Vasishtha Ashrama in Assam. And practice strenuous sadhana until he succeeded in realizing Brahman. With tearful eyes, he begged the master to bless him, bowed down, and left Dakshineshwar forever. Therefore, thenceforth, there was no definite news about Narayan Shastri. Some said that he became ill and died while practicing severe austerities in Vasishtha Ashrama. Whenever the master heard that genuine monks, spiritual aspirants, or devotees of various religious communities were living nearby, he wished to visit them. When such a desire arose, he would visit one of them uninvited and spend some time talking about God. He was not at all concerned whether the person would like or dislike his visit. Whether an aspirant he did not know would be pleased or displeased, or whether he himself would be properly honored or not, he would somehow make his way there and try to determine the spiritual attitude of that particular aspirant, evaluate how much progress he had made, and so on. He would not stop until he had reached a firm conclusion. The master followed the same procedure when he visited scholarly spiritual aspirants who were well versed in the scriptures. The master visited Pandit Padmalochan, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, and others, and sometimes he would tell us their stories. Now we shall tell the reader about Pandit Padmalochan, another very inspiring tale of how Sri Ramakrishna's touch transformed the life of this very scholarly person who was also a sincere spiritual seeker. So, and it is described, the background is described, before the master's advent, the study of Vedanta was rare in Bengal. Even now it is not that prevalent. More that Vaishnava and Shakta Tantras are prevalent in Bengal. The study of Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and in general Vedanta is not that common. So, Swami Vivekananda has mentioned that in some of his letters, and he therefore has extolled everybody to take up the study of Vedanta. It is so, this is mentioned here that although many centuries ago Shankara defeated the Tantric theologians of Bengal in debate, he was not able to establish his Vedanta philosophy among the masses. As a result, the Tantrikas accepted the basic truths of Vedanta and incorporated some of them in their prayer and meditation, but they continued to preach their traditional rituals to the public. The Bengali Pandits expended all energy of their fertile brains in studying Nyaya philosophy. Nyaya means the logic, and the hair-splitting logical arguments. That is considered the height of scholarship. That if somebody says something, show how that person is wrong. And that person accepts, okay, you are right. No, again, see, I am not right. Again show that how I am wrong. So all these hair-splitting arguments, it is, that is how they used to take pride in it. This is the Navya Nyaya, a new school of logic, and bringing about an epoch-making revolution in the realm of Nyaya philosophy. Perhaps the study of logic became greatly prevalent amongst Bengalis because Shankara had defeated and humiliated them in debate. Who can say? That may not be, but he says perhaps that's the reason. The world has often witnessed that when one nation is defeated by another in a certain field, the defeated and humiliated people strive to surpass their conquerors in the same endeavor. That has been seen in history. Many countries who were suppressed, in some way they strove further. In recent history, we know that Germany, because of the lot of suppression due to the other European nations' desire to expand their trade and all, then developed the technology to overcome that influence. And that is one of the reasons that led to First World War and then also to Second World War, that the Germany wanted to excel in all these skills and engineering, especially the engineering. So France had excelled in that field a lot, in mathematics and engineering and many other things. So Germany went in that direction and overtook the French and other nations in that field. So it is this similar case is about America. The Americans were not too long ago were considered very backward in technologies, and therefore were not very prosperous in that field. But the tables turned later on, and America became the biggest innovative place of innovation in technologies. The things happened with China. As you see, the Chinese, they were derided, ridiculed. Now you see, the whole world kind of, they don't like it, but they depend on China. What to do with China? You cannot neglect China anymore. It was not too long ago that the American politicians have derided China as a paper tiger. Paper tiger. China is just a paper tiger. And then you see, the whole thing is now changed. This is how when one country gets suppressed in one department, then they try to work hard to excel in that. So that is how Bengal became very proficient in producing the scholars of this new logic, so that if you have mastered this new logic, then nobody will be able to defeat you in debate. And what happened thereby was the study of Vedanta was neglected. The pursuit of the wisdom given in Vedanta was not taken up seriously. Although the study of Vedanta was then rare in Bengal, the playground of Tantra and Nyaya, it was not as if no one was attracted to the liberal conclusions of Vedanta. Pandit Padmalochan, for example, was such a one. After attaining mastery of Nyaya or logic, he had a desire to study Vedanta. He went to Varanasi, lived with a guru, and studied Vedanta philosophy for a long time. After some years, he became known as a great scholar of Vedanta. When Padmalochan returned home, he accepted the position of court Pandit for the Maharaja of Burdwan. So, as the Maharaja became acquainted with Padmalochan's wonderful abilities, he gradually promoted him to Chief Court Pandit. Padmalochan's fame spread throughout Bengal. It will not be out of place to relate a story of Pandit Padmalochan's extraordinary talent. One-sided and narrow views in spiritual matters develop from a lack of intelligence. That is, it's a very important statement, that the lack of intelligence, what does it mean? That you do not see that how various different views are related to your view, and thus you neglect them or downplay those. So this happens because of lack of intelligence. You just do not see that whatever you think to be right has so many correlations with all different themes of thought, and unless you see their place in your thought, you will not be able to have a comprehensive picture. So that is, an intelligent person sees therefore that there are these various streams, and I have to make my understanding clear, I have to integrate the understanding of various other streams with it. So this Pandit Padmalochan, as we mentioned earlier, the master was extraordinarily truthful. Whenever he heard a Catholic means not the Catholic religion like that, Catholic means a broad view that it is an embracing view, harmonious. So it is, he would store it in his memory. When he later quoted it in the course of conversation, he always mentioned the source. The master said that once there was a great argument among the Pandits in the royal court of Burdwan on the subject of whether Shiva or Vishnu is greater. Who is greater? Pandit Padmalochan was not present at that time. The other Pandits created a horrible, terrible uproar as they debated. Means just shouting, hey, I'm right. They tried to win it by the power of noise rather than the power of argument. So it is, when it is said in Sanskrit that Shesham Krodhena Purayet, that it is means all the lack in their that logic and argument then is supplemented by a lot of angry roars. So by angry roars you try to win. So that is how it happens. It is said that if there is a proper debate, then a conclusion is reached. That is the proper debate, that by argumentation, by listening to the various views, you understand them, and thus you come to a conclusion that harmoniously includes all. So that is the right way of going about a debate. Otherwise, what happens is the debaters on various different sides, all those debaters, the end result is they both develop hoarse voice. That's it. No conclusion gets reached. So, Master said that once there was a great argument, and then we read that the other Pandits created a terrible uproar as they debated, some insisting on Shiva and some Vishnu, according to their knowledge of the scriptures or perhaps influenced by their temperamental preferences. The dispute continued between Shaivas and Vaishnavas, and no solution could be found. At last the chief court Pandit was called to settle the problem. That is, chief was the Padmalochan. Pandit Padmalochan arrived at the royal court, and after listening to the question he remarked, "None of my ancestors for 14 generations have seen Shiva or Vishnu. So how can I say who is superior or inferior? By logic you cannot settle that dispute. You have to realize it. That is the meaning of it. You must see what Shiva is, what Vishnu is." And so he said, I cannot settle the dispute because in my 14 generations nobody has seen either Shiva or Vishnu. So who am I to settle the dispute? Who is greater than whom? There is no such chance. So it is Padmalochan, then it is said, but if you want to know what the scriptures say, it can be stated that Shaiva scriptures glorify Shiva and the Vaishnava scriptures Vishnu. Therefore, a devotee's own chosen deity is greater to that person than any other deities. Padmacharan then quoted as evidence verses indicating the magnificence of both Shiva and Vishnu compared to other gods, and concluded that both were equally great. This conclusion settled the dispute, and everyone applauded him. We get a glimpse of his genius from his humility, outspokenness, and clear understanding of the scriptures, and we understand the reason for his widespread popularity. Padmalochan's reputation did not depend solely on the fact that he had gained his wisdom by travelling widely in the dense forest of the scriptures. This is Shankaracharya's expression in Vivek Chudamani, that this scriptural study just on the books, taking the books, just the reading of them, intellectual study, academic study of the scriptures. What is it? He says, Shabda Jalam Maharanyam Chitta Brahmana Karanam. and that these scriptures, various different scriptures, they are full of such wordiness that it becomes a dense forest of words, Shabda Jalam, Maharanyam, all day, and different trees and weeds and creepers of words get woven, get entangled into each other, and thus you cannot find your way. So that is how the scriptural study of this type goes and becomes. I have also seen some such people that so much into these studies, but that study just remains only in accumulating and all sorts of different opinions, different views of different writers, without actually realizing any of them. There is no sadhana and no spiritual practice that has to accompany that. So it happens. So, but Padmalochan's reputation that even in his daily life, people saw his good conduct, nobility, austerity, detachment, and steadfast devotion to God. Without that, there is no meaning to scriptural study. All these qualities have to come in life. That is why every Friday, before the Friday class, we chant that verse, that peace chant, which mentions that all the virtues that are spoken of in the Upanishads, which are necessary for this realization of the ultimate truth, may those virtues be with me. That so this is how these virtues, they become complementary or an automatic outcome of the study of scriptures. So it is and ascertained that he was a remarkable spiritual aspirant and a lover of God. The coexistence of true erudition and deep devotion to God is rare indeed in the world. So people are attracted to anyone who has both. It was therefore not surprising that when the master heard of Padmalochan's greatness, he wished to see him. At that time, that Pandit had been adorning the royal court of Burdwan for a long time and was past middle age. Whenever the master wished to do anything, he was as anxious as a little boy to do it immediately. From his childhood onward, the master held this attitude: life is short, therefore do quickly whatever should be done. Yeah, no postponing, because you don't know whether there will be tomorrow or not. So do it now. So he, as a result, it was in his nature to accomplish every task intensely and speedily. There is a discussion on should others also follow the suit? No, because others should give a thorough thought, whatever their desire is, whether it is a good desire leading to good life or not. Because our life is filled with so many desires, and unfortunately most of them are not really elevating us towards the spiritual goal of life. And therefore we should not follow up on those desires. Otherwise the life will be much worse than what it is. Because angry thoughts keep on coming again and again. That long back, one young girl had come and I told, well, your mom had come and she said to me about you this. Did she say I can kill her? Now, naturally, she is not going to do anything like that. But suppose you want to, act according to your words. The thought came and immediately I have to execute it. Look how much disastrous our life will be. So many ideas that momentarily come to us, but when we run our understanding faculty over them, the pros and cons, then we say, well, better discard that idea instead of following on it. So, but with Sri Ramakrishna, in that pure mind, that purity cannot be even imagined. In that mind, no such thought could ever come. Something that is not pure and noble would not make any movement there. And so for him it was right. But for almost everybody else, one should run over whatever impulse comes to us, run it under the scanner of our proper understanding, take the advice of others before doing it. And then at that time Mathur saw the master's eagerness to meet Pandit Padmalochan. He contemplated whether to send him to Burdwan. In the meantime, the news arrived that Pandit Padmalochan had been ill for a long time and was currently staying in a garden house in Aryadaha on the bank of Ganges for a change of climate. He was feeling better after enjoying the fresh, pure air of the Ganges. Hriday was sent to verify this. Hriday returned, having confirmed this information. Moreover, when the Pandit heard about the master, he expressed his eagerness to meet him and cordially received Hriday when he learned that he was a relative of the master. A date was then fixed and the master went to visit the Pandit accompanied by Hriday. And then the Hriday's account of this meeting has been given. Hriday said that at their meeting the master and Padmalochan were pleased to see each other. The master recognized Padmalochan as a modest, open-hearted and profound scholar as well as a spiritual aspirant. The Pandit, for his part, realized that the master was a great soul and had reached a very lofty spiritual plane. When the master sang some songs of the Divine Mother in his sweet voice, the Pandit could not control his tears. He was also dumbfounded as he witnessed the master frequently lose outer consciousness in samadhi, and on hearing of his experience while in that state, we understand the Pandit, who was well versed in the scriptures, tried to compare the master's spiritual condition with those recorded in the scriptures. While trying to do so that day, however, he could not arrive at any definite conclusion and became perplexed. As he searched the scriptures, he could not find no parallels to the master's ultimate experiences. So he could not ascertain which was true, the scriptures or the master's realizations. The scriptures said many things, but there was what Sri Ramakrishna realized. He could not find something exactly parallel to that in scriptures. So naturally, is the scripture correct or the master's experience correct? So he was kind of confused about it. So because of this discriminating mind of the Pandit, which was accustomed to arriving at a firm conclusion on spiritual matters by means of his scriptural knowledge and keen intellect, felt a sort of restlessness in the midst of joy, like a dark shadow falling across light. So that is how it happened in their first meeting, because there are the descriptions of the state of samadhi, but nowhere in the scriptures you will find this spontaneous and often happening of this samadhi and coming out again on the plane of name and form, and then again at a moment's notice would go into that state of samadhi. What is this? There is no clear account of such a state in any Vedanta text or any such thing. So is it true? There is nothing to show that Sri Ramakrishna's state was not a noble state or not the state of spiritual realization. But why it is not mentioned? This thing is not mentioned in the scriptures. So he was having the habit. We become slaves of habit, that we are accustomed to come to conclusion on certain parameters. And then if those parameters are not met, we find it hard to come to conclusion. When we are forced to come to some conclusion, then we come to some without conviction, that it is because there is nothing has been done according to the verification method that you have. You did not verify, you don't know anything, but then you are forced to come to conclusion. It is something like this, that you are think of these pre-GPS or phone days. People would come to a fork and then go left, go right. In a new territory, they wouldn't easily know which fork to take, left, right, and then they can't stand in the middle for too long. Let me get out here. No, they have to take the one or the other. Other cars are honking behind. That it is, well, don't stand in the way. So you are forced to a conclusion without conviction. I may be wrong, but I have to now take some side and then think about it. So That is how Pandit Padmalochan was in a state of confusion. What is this state? The reason is this state is not easy to find in people. I have not seen, let me tell you, any person in that state of samadhi, and then coming back on the plane of a regular consciousness, and then talking, and then merging back in samadhi. I have not witnessed a single person, because it is a rare thing. It is an extremely, extremely rare thing. Sri Ramakrishna would say, he had mentioned that a few times, we had read that too, that if a spiritual aspirant by practice of devotion and discernment and all that comes gradually by the grace of Guru and God, to get that experience of samadhi, the realm that is beyond all forms, names, all specifications, that person would not come back to normal consciousness again. His body would drop off within 21 days. Because we had discussed that reason sometimes in these classes, that ordinarily human nervous system cannot carry the consciousness of the ultimate reality. See, our brains, they are made to just have these sensations and activities associated with this subject-object world, to see the things through different sense organs, to perceive them, decide on that whether I should run after this or not, and manage these worldly desires. That is the domain of our nervous system. That is how our nervous system has been designed. Now imagine this infinite awareness, devoid of any particulars, just rushes through that. The person will not be able to handle it. It is like, I give that example easily understandable for common people, that if the wiring in a house is made to handle, say, 20 ampere currents, that is normally the current allocations in a household are 20 amperes current, which is normally enough for a regular house. Now, if that wiring, if it suddenly, if say 100 amperes current passes through that, now first there are the circuit breakers, they will not allow it. The circuit breakers, to preserve the house, they will just break, the current will not be able to pass at all. If at all you remove the circuit breakers and make a direct connection, then all the wiring will melt, it will catch fire, a lot of devastation will happen. So that is how it happens when this kind of overwhelming consciousness enters. We cannot really appreciate it, understand it, and that is why it is no wonder that Padmalochan felt confused. Most people would have, and as they have been doing, that who have no understanding of what is samadhi, they would just say that he has become insane, he is getting frequent epileptic attacks. That's about it. Yeah. So it is, if somebody gets that awareness, Sri Ramakrishna told, somehow the body will last for 21 days and fall off. Therefore, one of our devotees, she in jest wrote me, Swami, you told me about meditation, but I don't want to do intense meditation because then otherwise my body will fall in 21 days. So it is just joke, not. But the point is that so it is something that nobody sees on a daily basis, or in fact in a lifetime one may not get to see such a person. So that is why we shall continue this discussion on Pandit Padmalochan. Sorry, I have taken a few more minutes. So we shall think about it, and if you have some questions, please feel free to voice them. Yes, Prithvish, any question? Very good, very good. You have a question, Ajay? Hmm. Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna during that time avoided everyone. And so they were not around then. So it is true, it's a good question, that what were they doing at that time? So most probably Hriday had gone to his village at that time, and so forth, So it is his usual companions were not around, but he did all this spiritual practice, and there were some others, like he said, somebody used to beat me with stick and push some food in my mouth. So he was in that state for 6 months, yeah. So let us conclude with the closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.